Hello everyone, my name is Rosie Murphy. I'm actually asleep now. You see, for me it's the middle of the night here in beautiful Aotearoa, New Zealand, where I recently moved. In my first week in the country, I went to an event about Maori architecture. But since I didn't know my way around, I arrived a bit late. Everyone else was already seated, split into two sections on either side of a grand hall adorned with beautiful Maori carvings and artworks. So as I entered, one of the event organisers whispered to me, "Are you staff? Are you involved?" At least that's what I think that she said. So I shook my head and I smiled. She gestured to me to take a seat on one side of the room. We gave each other a reassuring thumbs up and I took my seat. But then, almost immediately, every single person on my side of the room stood up. So I nervously stood up with them. And they all began to sing a traditional song in Maori language. I tried my hardest not to let the embarrassment show on my face. But then I looked around and I saw that everyone on the other side of the hall was still seated. They were watching me and my neighbours. Oh no, I thought, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be on that side of the room. And for the next 10 minutes of the event, I was completely oblivious as I replayed over and over again in my head how this mistake happened. Maybe the person at the door didn't understand me and my accent. Maybe they assumed I was Maori. Maybe I misunderstood their gesture. Either way, I was mortified. But while my experience as a newcomer in New Zealand had no serious consequences other than my own embarrassment, I'm going to talk to you about misunderstandings with far greater significance. The theme of this year's Design for Planet Festival is Collaborate. Collaboration, in simple terms, is the act of working together toward a common goal. But is this everyone's definition? Arthur Himmelman, author of Collaboration for Change, declared that the word collaboration is overused by many people. You see, it's one of those buzzwords that everybody loves. It marks progressiveness. It's cool. It's fun. Himmelman observed that people were interchanging collaboration with terms like networking, coordination, cooperation, and good old-fashioned teamwork. Now, when the definitions are so unclear, it leaves space for personal interpretations. And these are affected by everything from our education, our age, profession, language, culture, class, and more. So how do we bridge the gap of understanding to really make sure we're all working together on the same page? Failing to collaborate authentically leads to wasted energy and wasted resources. It can break down trust and break down communities. And in the fight against climate change, we just cannot afford to make these mistakes. Now, we're all probably familiar with the term greenwashing, where brands and corporations label their work as sustainable, eco, or green with little to no data proving the impact of their actions. Or even more alarmingly, they use this to deflect attention away from environmental harm. I would love to see the same critical lens and public awareness applied to collaboration. To avoid any misunderstandings, I would now love to share with you my reflections on what does collaboration mean to me. The first essential aspect of collaboration for me is people. Connecting with others, meeting new people, learning more about their lives is actually one of my favourite things. You see, I'm a textbook extrovert. This skill, which I now consider to be my personal superpower, actually began as one of my biggest struggles. Growing up as a mixed-race, bisexual, generally gender non-conforming person, I never fit into society's boxes. Times have drastically changed. Identities like mine are increasingly familiar. But back when I was young, the Spice Girls dictated 5 clearly defined personality types for playtime, of which I was always just the brown one. So I had no choice but to learn fast how to navigate across vastly different communities, cultures, beliefs, and behaviours. And ever since, I've been absolutely fascinated by the way that different people operate. This started out as a survival tactic for me, desperately trying to fit in, and now that I've let that go, understanding people has developed into a survival strategy for the planet. The actions of people have led to the creation of the climate crisis. Definitely not all people, but enough. Therefore, it is up to people to take action to manage its impact. So while I do believe public and private sector bodies hold significant means for change, I also recognise that these entities are comprised of people. People who are motivated by human desires, human fears, and a natural inclination towards maintaining the status quo. People made up of exactly the same stuff as you and me and all of nature around us. Throughout my architectural studies, I was always trying to explore sustainability through a social lens and social issues through an environmental lens. But attempting to expose racism and social injustices while also trying to fix a dying planet, while also trying to just write an essay about architecture or do my day job, was way too many big problems for little old me. So after years of splitting myself across these issues, I finally found comfort in community as I became the Diversity and Solidarity Coordinator for the Architects Climate Action Network. ACAN began and still operates today as a network of individuals based all over the world working hard to enact positive change in the built environment and construction industry. We came together to address three common aims: decarbonise now, ecological regeneration, and cultural transformation. But even as a group working together towards our shared goals, disagreements, conflicts, and contrasting ideas inevitably happen. This is not only normal, but in my opinion, crucial. After all, if everyone is thinking alike, then no one is thinking at all. One way that we sustain collaboration, like many other activist groups, is to use inclusive facilitation techniques. So for anyone that doesn't know, this simply means each meeting has a defined agenda, facilitator and note taker, as well as hand gestures for non-verbal communication. One finger means you have a point to make, two fingers mean you have a directly related point to someone else and you get to skip the queue. Wavy hands up means I agree, and wavy hands down means I disagree. Making sure that everyone's voices, ideas and opinions are valued is essential in collaboration, not just the loudest, most confident native English speakers. So we've created a culture where challenging each other's ideas is invited, which helps to uncover flawed assumptions and enhance clarity in our collaborations. For me, collaboration means moving from disagreement to dialogue. And in ACAN, we exercise inclusive facilitation in every single meeting and conversation. Honestly, once you start, it's actually quite hard to stop. We're definitely not perfect, but looking to activist groups, non-profit organisations and grassroots collectives continues to teach me more about meaningful, sustainable collaboration than any corporate training or LinkedIn article. What these groups radiate in the face of conflict is individual and collective, calm, steadfast peace. Meaningful collaboration both relies on and deepens relationships. The stronger the bond between the people or groups in collaboration, the more possibility you can hold. When you begin this work, notice who you feel drawn to and where you find ease. And equally, notice who challenges you, who makes the edges of your ideas grow or fortify. My best work has happened during my most challenging collaborations, because there are actual differences that are converging and creating more space, identifying ways forward that serve more than just one worldview. Building strong relationships and learning about ourselves and others toward a shared understanding, toward collective peace, takes time. However, there is so much urgency in the multitude of crises we face that it can make it hard to remember that it's urgency thinking that got us to this point, and that our potential success lies in doing deep, slow, intentional work. That we must trust in the collective process, as slow and frustrating as it may seem. Which brings me to my next essential aspect of collaboration, which is process. Participation has always been a reflective act. It required all of us involved to critically look at the industry and ourselves within it, finding the sources of our limitations, challenges, and potential solutions in the shift to a more environmentally sensitive sector. And in that reflection, I was drawn to the power and potential of education. Initially focused on higher education, here the students were learning, or not learning, the essential skills that they needed to become the next wave of professionals. We initiated the Climate Curriculum campaign and established the Student Climate Action Network, which is still running to this day. But we also realized that the skills students needed for collaborative action are formed long before they set foot in the institution. Did you know? An international assessment of hundreds of thousands of pre-university age students revealed less than 10% exhibited high collaborative performance. That means the remaining 90% just aren't equipped to work well together. System change had to happen earlier, back to teenagers considering their GCSEs, and even further back to children at the very beginning of their journeys. You see, collaborators aren't born, they're made, described by Twyla Tharp, author of The Collective Habit. How then do we prepare the children in our lives to be visionary, collaborative, adaptive, and to find collective hope, even when the future seems frightening and incomprehensible? Guided by the expertise of the wonderful social enterprise Matt and Fiona, the process of collaboration took on a much deeper and more profound meaning when I began working with children and young people. In this role, it simply wasn't my job to be presented with a brief and respond with my own designs. Absolutely not. My role as a designer was to create the workshops, activities, and diverse ways of collaborating most suitable for children and young people to express their design ideas. One of my favourite projects involved working with a group of 12 9-year-olds, each with their own unique special educational needs. Some of the children were non-verbal, one made use of a wheelchair, and others were on varying points along the autism spectrum. Over the course of the project, the Matt and Fiona team and I got to know this particular group while they got to know us. We learned to limit our dependence on verbal and written feedback. We learned to allow space and schedules for play, much needed connection time, and a greater awareness of tactility. I learned when to humbly hold back on my own designs, and indeed hold back on my own ego, to allow space for the children's creativity to flourish. Now, the process was challenging, especially when the clients initiating the project kept asking, what the heck would we be making at the end of it? And we kept having to say, well, we don't completely know yet because the kids haven't gone through the whole process yet. But without manipulation or forcing the outcome toward our adult desires, the children created a design proposal that did care for all people, that did care for the planet. And in that process, I found hope. In the realization that our responsibility as designers isn't to come up with the outcomes to fix the world's issues. Indeed, thinking that we could is a demonstration of the egotism that got us into such crises. But what we could do is use our creativity, our expertise, to develop the processes which encourage more authentic collaboration. By putting my trust in children and young people, I found hope that the future can change. Transformation doesn't happen in a linear way, at least not one that we can always track. It happens in cycles. If we release the framework of failure, we can realize that we are in an ongoing, iterative cycle, and we can keep asking ourselves with an open mind, how do I learn from this? And there are so many lessons to learn. After all, between 50 and 75% of all inter-organizational collaborations seem to fail. But why do collaborations fail? Well, there are a lot of reasons. Collaboration can be time-consuming. It creates risks for the participants. Competing objectives can be hard to resolve, and all of this costs money. But in my experience, the greatest flaw is an inauthentic shift in power. Despite the importance of people and process, collaboration is meaningless without awareness of power. When was the last time you felt powerless? When was the last time you felt powerful? When was the last time you usurped someone else's power? And equally, when was the last time you shared yours? For those in lesser positions of power, collaboration appears to be a chance. It's an opportunity to finally have their voices heard and to be a part of essential decision making. But all too often, this simply isn't the case. Collaboration can be performative and can be tokenistic. Those in greater positions of power are not prepared to share their power, and the procedures in place simply don't demand it. Working with children and young people, our adult-child power dynamics were blatant. We couldn't ignore it, so we had to face it. But power dynamics exist across all group efforts at any scale. When working together, who really holds the power to make decisions? The single most important image that was ever showed to me in my career journey so far was this: Arnstein's ladder of citizen participation. Arnstein, though specifically concerned with participation, illustrates a hierarchical continuum that moves from the bottom, which is non-participation, no power, up to degrees of tokenism, counterfeit power, and then up to degrees of citizen participation, actual power. Captivated by this revelation, I began a deep dive into more accurately trying to identify what we as an industry mean by participation, what we mean by co-design, what we mean by collaboration, and where do these acts sit in relation to power. So now this ladder is not a perfect diagram, as I know that resources from time, money, and skill dictate the level of interaction possible. Absolute citizen control just isn't always viable. But what's important for me is the honest identification of where a project sits on the continuum. What are the parameters? Giving us a clear indication of where we could be aiming toward in the future and what actions we must work hard to avoid. This act can be uncomfortable, confronting, and difficult to accept, but we need to hold ourselves radically accountable in an attempt to do better. Shout out to the folks at ACAN who recently launched the amazing campaign asking, "Are you using your power?" They've identified the power that all of us have to shape the design industry. The ACAN team have collated a fantastic list of resources and really practical tips to turn self-reflection into action, and I would encourage every one of you to please utilize it. Collaboration as climate action requires power shifts across society in economic systems, women's empowerment, intergenerational equity, long-standing racial and colonial injustices, and all forms of oppression and inequality. For me, fundamentally, sharing power is an act of love. Because you see, this is important. Love expands intelligence, whereas aggression lowers intelligence and limits creativity. And this is according to the renowned Chilean biologist Humberto Maturana. When the love of people, the love of place, and an understanding of global harms merge, a powerful obligation burns brightly to work together to protect what we love. So now you know. To me, collaboration means people, and with this, peace. Active peace that does not avoid conflict, but seeks to create equitable, inclusive dialogue. Collaboration means process, ongoing in the act of hope. Hope that is slow, patient, and enduring. And at its heart, collaboration means power. It means making power explicit to all involved, and where possible, shifting systems toward a more equal power dynamic based on love. Now, my experiences have not been grand. I've never founded a company or run a business. I enjoy the small interactions that echo the words and lessons of my ancestors, teachers, colleagues, grassroots communities, activists, and children. These small acts echo and ripple outward, affecting change far greater than me and my collaborators. Those seeking to shift systems through collaboration should be prepared for their organizations, their mindsets, and even their individual selves to change, as collaboration is fundamentally a deeply reflective process, no matter the scale. The social and environmental challenges that we face are complex and deep. Just as everything around us in the natural world, including humans, is connected, working together within a vast ecosystem, so too are our solutions. The activist Carissa Lewis puts it beautifully. She says, "In nature, everything works in collaboration. There are hummingbirds and flowers that are in such deep coordination that they need each other for survival. How vibrant and alive and successful could our movement be if we moved with such coordination and collaboration?" The next time you, your colleagues, or your organization begin important collaborative work, I urge you to ask the question, what does collaboration mean to me? Make your meaning clear. Explore your processes, and most importantly, identify your power. I'm awake now, here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I look forward to building new collaborative relationships. But still, I keep going back to that event, where as I've learned more about the culture and context of the people around me, I've come to realize I was sitting in exactly the right seat. I returned to the song which once was the point of such embarrassment for me. So, I invite you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, notice your body and the world around you. Listen as I sing. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mai e tātou tātou e. Te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mai e tātou tātou e. Which translates in English to love, hope, peace for us all. Tēnā koutou, thank you for listening.